Hey guys, let me tell you something. Jenna Ingle loves the oboe. She's built her business on providing high quality handmade reeds, education, and a sympathetic ear to oboists across the country. When you order from Jenna Ingle Reeds, you get prompt communication, reeds or cane handcrafted to your specifications, and cheerful, friendly customer service. All orders are mailed within 1 week, sometimes much faster. Single orders and monthly reed subscriptions are also welcome, and she's going to work with you to find the right combination of response, resistance, stability, and flexibility that's right for you. Double Reed Dish listeners can use the code DISH, that's all caps, for 10% off your first order at jenatingle.com.
You know how we're always in the market for good quality handmade reeds? Well, MKL is the one-stop shop for handmade oboe reeds where you can try reeds from various makers and select the one that is best for you. Visit mklreeds.com and enter coupon code DOUBLEREEDDISH, 3 separate words, all caps, for free shipping on your first order. Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
We're recording this from afar, but I actually get to see you in just a couple of days. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Although I have to say the weather today in Mississippi is absolute perfection and we are going north.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Missouri's actually been pretty nice, not to rub it into our listeners in the north. But I have to admit, I've been checking the weather occasionally just to make sure. It looks like we're going to be okay, knock on wood.
Okay.
But yes, I've been checking. And for those who don't know, we're, of course, talking about going to visit the Miami University Bassoon Day. We've got so much fun planned.
Oh my God, it's going to be so awesome. First of all, thank you so much to Ryan Reynolds and the Miami University Bassoons for allowing this oboist to crash the party. I feel like I'm just going to walk around being like, I'm so sorry for my kind. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oboists are great.
Well, and I'm super excited about the approach we're taking. Of course, we were at Georgia State earlier this year, and we'll be at the University of Florida in March. Mm-hmm. But Ryan really has encouraged us to kind of take this to a Jay Leno, Johnny Carson, Ellen talk show vibe. And we definitely went the Ellen route, and we've got games planned.
We've got games. We've got interactions. We've got interviews.
We might even have some Oprah-esque giveaway.
There's a PowerPoint involved.
That PowerPoint may or may not have embedded sound files. Patting myself on the back.
Listen, that PowerPoint, 100,000% credit to you. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super pumped.
I think so too. I think it'll be really great. And unfortunately, I have to, well, here's the thing. Okay, so that is on Sunday, the 17th. Saturday the 16th is my double reed day at Southeast. So that gets over around 3:30. I have to be out of town by 4, hit the road, drive straight to Oxford, Ohio. I'll get in around midnight, wake up, have tons of fun with you and the Miami Bassoons. And of course, Keith Bunky will be there as well. And then as soon as it's over, I have to drive right back because I have something for work that I have to be at on Monday.
It's going to be an action-packed weekend.
I've got a lot of podcasts downloaded because I'll be just driving a lot.
Are you going to listen to yourself talk on Double Reed Dish?
I have to admit, I do not listen to Double Reed Dish. I'm not like a megalomaniac. And plus I edit the interviews, so I'm there for the interviews and I edit the interviews. So I do listen to the content of each episode probably 3 times by the time it gets released. So no, I don't spend, I like to diversify when I'm listening for enjoyment.
Same. So perfect segue, but we have a completely different topic for this dish. And we were thinking that it would be fun to talk about the moment that you decided to become a professional musician.
Yeah, I think for me, I was thinking about it and it was really a slow realization. I've talked a bit about how I was kind of not from a private lesson background. For me, I was in high school in band and it was pretty much just for fun. And I didn't have any sort of training and I kind of just derped my way through it, for lack of a better word. I still wanted to do like solo ensemble contests and stuff, but I just didn't really take it seriously. I think back and I was the kind of student who probably really frustrated people. But I do remember I was in my freshman year of my undergrad and I was walking somewhere to campus and campus was really empty. And I remember going, gosh, like every performance pretty much has some element of like crash and burn. And that was kind of normal because I didn't really practice. I just kind of put myself in these performing situations because I liked being involved and I liked being active. And I was like, but not everyone does that. Like professionals, they get to a place where that doesn't happen. So it must not be inevitable. So how does that happen? I want to do that. And not necessarily mean like I want to be a professional at that point, but just the realization that if I put the work in, I could have the type of performances that I admired and that it wasn't those people are like touched by the hand of God and that's why they sound good when they perform, but eureka, they put in the hard work. And so by that math equation, if I put in the hard work, I could give a performance that I was prepared for and was executed at a level of my preparation. And in my mind at that time, I used the word perfect. And now I would say representative of my level of preparation. But that was embarrassingly kind of a revelation for me at the time. And then as that thought came true, then I was like, oh, this feels good. This is, rewarding. This adds to my concept of self and my self-esteem and my accomplishment. And even watching myself go from that apathetic non-musician to someone who really cared, it was like, I want this feeling to last forever. So I think that's kind of how I stumbled upon that.
That's so beautiful, Jackie.
It kind of is. I feel like I made it sound well. It's essentially, I was a slacker. And then at one point I decided, what if I wasn't a slacker? What if I wasn't a total embarrassment to myself, my teachers, and my institution? How would that go? Would I feel better? So
my coming to it was similar. So I took lessons when I was in high school, and this woman deserves so many blessings for her patience and her compassion. Huge shout out to Marilyn Cranston, who plays English horn with the Hartford Symphony Orchestra, for putting up with me and my slackery tendencies when I was in high school. But she would tell me all the time, you could be good at this, but you're doing too many other things. And I never listened to her until she suggested that I look into this music festival, summer festival, the Luzerne Music Center in upstate New York. And I went the summer before my senior year of high school, and we learned one movement. It was 4 weeks, and we learned one movement a week of Tchaikovsky's Pathetique Symphony, and I just fell in love. It was like going there and just hearing all of my peers who sounded incredible. There were a lot of students there from the metropolitan Philadelphia area who were taking lessons with really incredible people. And I was just like, wow, this level is very high. And then there I am immersed in the Pathetique Symphony. And I just thought, oh, this is it. This is what I want. If I can do this, then I'm good. So then I practiced my booty off. I actually won the superlative that summer for best practicer at camp.
Okay.
Brush my shoulders off. But I remember talking to my oboe teacher there at the camp, and I said, do you think I can do this? And he said, yeah. And then I said, okay. So then I went home to Mrs. Krentzman and I said, I want to do this. And she was like, okay, dummy, let's get going. So then I quit my other activities that had been taking up all of my time. And I practiced so much. I practiced before school. I practiced after school. I did a lot of catch up work. And I think it was that feeling of I'm behind that has fueled me throughout, most of my career as a student, and actually part of my career as a professional is that feeling of you are behind, you need to catch up, right, has been a driving force for a lot of my progress. And actually it was really validating reading the Talent Code because Daniel Coyle talks about that. Mm-hmm. That feeling of I'm behind, I have to catch up, really fueling the fire for people to, put in the work and get it done. And so a part of the struggle actually has been to get over that feeling of I'm behind and settle into I'm okay. You know right. What I mean? But I'm getting there, and it's been a really great journey for me personally.
Oh, yeah. And it's such a hard balance, right? Between, we talk about wanting to practice self-care and work-life balance. And that's something that we really advocate for on this podcast. And that's really important. But the flip side of that coin is what we do and achieving excellence in what we do requires sacrifice.
Totally.
I have characteristics of a scholar identity that I have on my cork board that I refer to a lot, that I got at a seminar that I went to that I've never forgotten. And one of them is the need for achievement versus the need for affiliation. Mm. And those moments when, all my friends would be going to the student union, Jackie, come have a smoothie or whatever. And I knew I needed to practice and said, I'll have to catch up with you later. I have to practice, or like you said, going in before school or staying after school. And it does take dedication, and it does take sacrifice of you have to put time into it.
I'll tell you, my brothers can still sing the exposition of the Mozart concerto, the first movement of the Albinoni concerto, because I was practicing while they were trying to sleep.
So we did a call for other people's stories of when they realized they wanted to be a musician. Mm-hmm. And I would love to start with Mason's, who says, I realized I wanted to become a musician in the 5th grade when my band director started playing the Pink Panther. It was the day she was showing us the different instruments for us to play, and I didn't think I wanted to join the music department. And then she played the Pink Panther on the alto sax, and I was like, I want to play that. Oh, Mason, you poor misguided former manifestation of self. 2 years later, at a different school, my new band director thought I was pretty good and said, quote, try this bundle of sticks now, unquote. A few years later, I'm starting college next year as a bassoon performance major. Mason, I'm so glad life saved you from that terrible, terrible path.
Da-da. Da-da. We got another submission from Fernando, who said the feeling of being in the middle of an orchestra and being able to tell a story only with the sound of the oboe is what got him into music professionally. Same, Fernando, same.
As a bassoonist, I love the bassoon, but I do have to admit there's just something about a beautiful oboe solo singing out in the context of an orchestra that's like, oh yeah. This is nice.
It's like, we're amazing.
Okay, girl, settle down. Kristen says, I was a little girl and I spent most of my time with my dad in his band room. I got to witness everything behind the scenes. I would see how music can bring so much joy to people, how it can be an outlet for others, but more importantly, bring people closer and build lifelong friendships and relationships. I saw how much positivity music had, and I knew I never wanted to leave.
Excuse me while I go cry in the corner. That is the most beautiful thing I've ever read.
And it's important to keep in mind as well, definitely.
Our last submission is from Christy Selkeen, who wrote, I fully intended to be a writer and planned to major in journalism. I worked for our local newspaper over spring break my junior year, and I was so bored. Meanwhile, I had just started taking oboe lessons with a student at Oberlin Conservatory. Then I started getting into underbands. Then I got principal oboe in the youth orchestra. Then colleges started recruiting me, and I realized how much I loved it. There's still plenty of time for me to be a writer, but I'm so happy that I chose this life.
Booyah.
Booyah.
Mic drop.
We all come to this in such different ways. I love it. And sometimes when it's frustrating, it's nice to go back and think, why did I want to do this in the first place? And then you're like, oh, because it's perfect and I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Don't you hate feeling bored with all the music on your stand? Well, luckily, you never have to feel that way again. JDW Sheet Music offers a wide variety of chamber music pieces for wind players of all ages. Their catalog includes duets, trios, quintets, and even double reed choir pieces for beginner, intermediate, and advanced players. Each of the pieces on the site will include sample pages, audio excerpts, and short descriptions. JDW Sheet Music has also made it possible to access the music sooner through the new Digital Download Only feature. Pieces that are marked Digital Download Only will be made available immediately after purchase. To learn more about JDW Sheet Music, please visit www.jdwsheetmusic.com.
So we all know that Genda Industries is known for their reed knives, sharpening, and overall amazing quality in the double reed world. But there is so much more going on at Genda Industries. Did you know that you can get oboe and bassoon reeds from Genda Industries at the Artisan Mall? The Genda Industries Artisan Mall, it's like a farmer's market, and it's filled with talented, local, and regional reed makers selling their own reeds. It's a great way to try out some new reeds from new makers, and who knows, one day maybe your reeds will be for sale. Add the code DRDGenda, that's all capitals, no spaces, at checkout, and get 10% off any Genda reed knife, maintenance kit, reed knife sharpening book, cutting block, and reed tool row. Visit them at gendaindustries.com. Oh, and they're much more than just reed knives.
We are delighted to welcome to the podcast Sarah Roper, solo oboe of the Real Orquesta Sinfónica de Sevilla. Welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you.
Let's start by talking about how you came to play the oboe.
Well, I played the recorder from quite an early age. I think I was about 5 or 6. Well, I played the piano before that, around the same time, piano and recorder. And I think I already knew I liked blowing an instrument. It was I knew straight away anyway that I wanted to do something with music at that age. And when I was about 8 or 9, I was playing in a very local small youth orchestra, and they didn't have any oboes, so I was playing the oboe part on the recorder. So we were playing like Beethoven Symphony, the first Symphony of Beethoven, and I was playing all the solos with the recorder. And they kept on saying to me, "When are you going to get an oboe?" And it sort of just became a natural process in a way, because they needed an oboist in that orchestra. And then also I found out that it was really difficult to play, from what everybody say, what's it like? Oh, it was very difficult to play. And I just thought, oh yeah, that's brilliant, that's for me. I always like to do, I think just probably my character, I like doing things which are a challenge, and it just sort of happened like that. And then a family friend of ours, an uncle, had an oboe, so I was able to try it. And it just went on from there, really. I could play it straight away, made a sound, and that was it, really. I loved it. So I knew straight away that's what I wanted to do, really, from the age of 10. That it was very clear in my mind I wanted to be an oboist, and was I think I'm very lucky in that sense that I don't think there's many people at that age can have such a focused outlook on what they want to do in the future. But I know with I have two sisters, and I think they found it a bit strange that I knew exactly what I wanted to do at that age. So that's how I came to play the oboe, really.
What did that focus look like at such a young age? How did it manifest itself in your practice habits and whatnot?
I think I just fell in love with the sound, and I knew that I wanted to make music that way with that sound. I was very lucky to start with an oboe teacher who was an oboist. In Britain, there are a lot of wind teachers that teach a lot of wind instruments in schools. In my time, when I was at school, that's how it was. So you would often maybe start playing the oboe with a flute teacher or a clarinetist. But I was very lucky to actually. My first teacher was actually a professional oboist, Peter Bassett, who had played in orchestras in Scotland, and he was. I think obviously he found it. He enjoyed having a student that really enjoyed playing the oboe, and likewise, I was really inspired by him. And we played a lot together. We did a lot of duets. One of the first things that he gave me to play was the solo of Swan Lake, and he had a way of showing me what you can do with the oboe, the beautiful things, and it never seemed like it was a hard thing. I mean, I knew that there were reeds and everything else, but it was a very positive feeling I had the whole time. I think obviously having played the recorder beforehand, that made it much easier because I knew most of the notes, the fingerings. So I was able to play lots of tunes straight away.
Can you talk us through your training and educational journey?
Yeah, so I had private lessons with Peter Bassett, and then when I was 13, I won a place at Chetham's School of Music, which is a specialist music school for children until they're 18. That's in Manchester. So I went there and I boarded there because my family my parents still live there in Gloucestershire. So it was a case of boarding there and going home every three weekends. So I went there until I was 18. Then I went to the Royal Academy, studied with George Caird and Celia Nicklin. And then after that, with a German government scholarship, I studied with Thomas Indemüller in Karlsruhe in the Musikhochschule. There I did a postgraduate course for 2 years. And during that whole time, really, right from the age of 13, in Manchester it was very intensive time. Also in London and Germany, I did a lot of summer courses, masterclasses with different people. So I didn't just... I would say obviously they were the key teachers that I had, but I learned a lot from other people as well.
Can you tell us about what it was like studying in England and then studying in Germany? As Americans, we don't have so much access to, the different styles that are available throughout the world. So how was that different?
For me, it was perfect. It was just right for me because in Britain, the training is very much focused on orchestral playing. In London, I just played absolutely lots of chamber music, lots of orchestral music. We went through all the orchestral solos, all the repertoire. Every year we had exams on things like that. Obviously, everything else, but there was very much a lot of focus on orchestral work, because the idea was that you are to become an orchestral professional orchestral musician, which is probably the most realistic goal if you want to play, rather than becoming a soloist. I mean, obviously also they trained us to become teachers as well, but I was very much playing a lot and traveling in the underground, and that was about it. I did practice, but it was not the same as when I went to Germany. So when I arrived in Germany, it was just like paradise in a way, because suddenly I had every day, I just woke up and all I had to do was practice the oboe, and it was just amazing. Because the course that I had there in Karlsruhe was, because it was the postgraduate course, I didn't have to do analysis or theory hardly at all. It was just basically concentrate on the oboe, which was brilliant. And then the transport, of course, I went everywhere by bike. It was much more relaxed. I suddenly had money because I had a scholarship to I could go out for a coffee, which was really nice. London was really exciting but hard financially, so there's a lot of advantages of going to a big city like that, but it's not easy if you're paying rent and everything, and it's not cheap. And so of course when I arrived in Germany, in Karlsruhe, a small town where the rent was cheaper, and I didn't have to pay for underground. That was great, and the lifestyle was very different. And also in my class in Karlsruhe, there were a lot of foreigners. It was a very international class within De Müller. And we all sort of like looked after each other. It was a bit like a big oboe family. And we would, there were, I think, I seem to remember there was about 6 of us doing the same course as me. We just spent a lot of time practicing, stopping, having a coffee, then going back, practicing again. And during this time, I focused a lot more on solo work, concertos, more repertoire for recitals and things like that. So that was great for me, and I found Thomas was fantastic in the way he just let us all just develop each one individually in our own way, because there was a French Canadian, Australian, there were some Germans as well, Japanese, Korean, me. So it was a lot of different sounds, different schools of playing, and that was interesting as well, to learn from each other in that way.
Could you talk to us about embarking on your professional journey and how you got to where you are today?
When I was in London, I did gigs, did freelancing, and the same in Germany as well. After I finished studying at the Hochschule, I did some freelance work, and I started to teach as well. But obviously what I was really looking for was I needed a proper full-time job. I did as many auditions as I could, like most of us, and it just sort of, everything just happened without me really trying, in a way. I was fortunate to be asked to go and play in an orchestra in Granada in Spain. So I went, this was a contract to go and just play for a bit, so I did that. Then I went back to Karlsruhe. Then I was given another contract to play in a modern music group in Vienna. And then again, the orchestra in Granada phoned me back. They said, could you come and play? So I did that. And then this particular job actually came up. So I did the audition. And that was for second oboe with Cor Anglais in the Orquesta de Granada. and I won that job, and I just thought, well, I'll take it. But I never ever thought I was going to stay in Spain. I just thought, oh, I'll do that now, and then I'll go back to Germany, or I'll go back to London or whatever. Well, first of all, just because I originally just thought, I cannot live here. They're just so relaxed. I could not cope with the siesta. It was just driving me crazy because, everything finishes at 2, and then the orchestral rehearsal didn't start till 5. And I was just like, what am I going to do? You're supposed to go and sleep? That I found really difficult at the beginning. But actually, surprisingly enough, it didn't take me too long to. I suppose I never really got used to it. But there were things that I just thought, I'm not going to stay in Spain. But anyway, I stayed in that orchestra for a year because the job in Seville came up, the first oboe job came up, and I auditioned for it. And originally it was like a temporary contract to fill in for somebody for 3 years, and that person didn't come back. So then there was another audition for the actual job, and then I won that, and ended up staying because by that time I'd met my future husband, and obviously that changed a lot of things, changed my decision on whether I would stay in Spain or not. My husband plays the double bass in the same orchestra, and that sort of, it just was like a natural process in a way, just to stay in Seville. I really enjoy it. It's a good orchestra, fantastic colleagues. I've been here since 96, so in Seville 22 years, because in the middle, about 10 years ago, I went to New Zealand for a year. Well, all three of us, my daughter and my husband and me, we went because I won a job in Auckland, the Auckland Philharmonia, because, well, we just decided we wanted to have a change, basically, and we just thought, well, why don't we go for something different? And that job came up, so we took here the conditions are fantastic. I can have up to 3 years leave and still come back to the same job. So we decided we're gonna do that, take that job on and see how it goes. So we went there, had a fantastic time. But by the end of the year, we realised that was not the right thing, and came back to Seville. But that was great because it made us realise, when you go away from somewhere, you appreciate other things, and that was a very positive. Also coming back because it's sort of made a quite a dramatic change in a way, in the way I decided to carry on doing things, because when we went to New Zealand, we basically emptied the house, we sold our cars, because we didn't know whether we were going to come back or not, so we left everything just in case we didn't come back. So when we did come back, it was like starting with a clean slate and just doing something different, although we were still in the same orchestra.
So you spoke about how you have served these different roles in the orchestra: English horn, second oboe, solo oboe, or principal, as we would call it. And I'm curious how you were able to develop and cultivate the skills that would allow you to be flexible in those various positions as opportunities arose, and what advice you would have for other oboists and instrumentalists in terms of flexibility between the roles that we play in the orchestra.
For me, I started to work in Granada. I was playing second there. I was 25. I just finished studying, and I was still. Well, I think now I would be as well. The thing is, when you get to a certain age, it's not that easy to go for another job somewhere else and change. But then, for me, it was totally normal to carry on studying, and I really wanted to play first oboe. So, for me, there was no doubt that I could change. I didn't see any obstacle with that at all. I mean, I understand, of course, playing second oboe and cor is quite a different role in the orchestra, and I learned a lot from that. And also, I think it's really helped me to understand, when you're playing first oboe, what the second oboe and the cor anglais is going through, because I think actually, in a way, it's much easier to play first. When you're a solo oboe or a leader of a section, obviously you've got your responsibility and you have to be there and have everything in place, and you need certain qualities of being able to play as a soloist. But the second oboe part is often super difficult, because they have to always follow what the first player does, and they have to, if the second oboe doesn't play well, the first oboe can sound awful. I mean, you when you're playing in octaves or something, or you've got a solo accompanied by the second oboe, you absolutely need a good, stable second oboe that's just there, almost like a shadow with you. And sometimes they have to come out as well. So in that sense, obviously, it's a different role. But I don't see any reason why somebody can't change jobs if they're flexible enough as a person and as a instrumentalist. It should be possible.
You seem to be a person who is open to the unexpected opportunity and to the adventure that presents itself in the moment. You didn't expect to stay in Spain, and you stayed in Spain, and you went to New Zealand for a year. And I think that can sometimes be difficult for people to say, well, I had pictured my life one way.
Yeah.
And now my life is going the other way, or a different way. And not that that way is bad, but sometimes it's hard to let go of that previous vision of what the life was, quote unquote, supposed to be. Was that ever something that you had to think about or deal with? And if it was, what advice do you have for people who are going through that?
Yeah, I did actually, in a way. But I think I realized quite early on, when I was especially when I was studying in Germany, that I could end up anywhere, in a way. I think when I was younger, possibly before I left London, I had quite a sort of a set view about how I should end up, where I should end up playing. And first of all, I wanted to study at the Paris Conservatoire. And then later I was thinking, I want to be working in London. But then when I went to Germany, I met a lot of foreigners, a lot of different people. And I saw how life could be different as well. Obviously, then also speaking a different language, learning a different culture. I think I realized that, obviously, I also saw that it doesn't matter where I end up, I've got to make a living. I have to somehow get a job somewhere. You can't choose. And then, maybe you can sometimes, but I think I realized quite early on, especially when I ended up in Granada, that I just had to go with the flow totally, because it was never planned, any of it. I think the only thing that was really planned were the places that I went to study. But after that, you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to play with, who's going to listen to you and then offer you work. And I mean, I think I would say I probably read quite a lot of books and thought a lot about things like that, about life and how you can't control. You really cannot control your destiny. And I think, especially with a profession like ours, we have to realize if the oboe or music is your passion, you have to, in order to follow your dream, you do need to just let opportunities come to you and take them when the door is opened. Go for it, and then if you realize it's not the right thing, then you can always go back and try something else. But I definitely feel that it's impossible to control most of
That's
all.
hard.
Yeah,
it's hard for oboists to not have control.
But that philosophy, in a way, helps you just with the whole thing about reeds. I mean, if we are able to relax and just think, I mean, obviously you have to make reeds and make sure you've always got good reeds, but sometimes they're not how we want them to be. So there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to do the best you can on the day with what you've got, that's that's something you can't control, that suddenly the cane might go all soggy or you suddenly have water in your oboe. There's many things that you can't control in a performance, for example. Yeah.
Radical acceptance. I love it.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we've spoken about the international scope of your career, and that's very evident in your involvement with the Spanish Double Reed Society. You're the president. You're also the first vice president of IDRS. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about your involvement and enthusiasm for these organizations and your approach and why it's important to you to do this international community building in our field.
Yeah, well, this all boils down to what happened to me when I started to play the oboe when I was younger, when I was a teenager. Quite early on, probably when I was about 11 or 12, before I was a teenager, in Gloucestershire, where my parents live, there were some double reed days, just once a year, and we went to a house and played. It was very early on. We're talking like, more than 35 years ago, and I think it was the beginnings of the British Double Reed Society. So I wasn't really aware of what was happening with double reed societies. But what I did find at that age, for me, that opportunity to be with other students that I had never met before, or teachers, professionals that played with me, like we'd do chamber music or we'd do double reed bands or something, that was just so inspiring and really, really helped me to, I think if somebody wants to play an instrument and they have that type of experience and they're inspired, it can just like, it could be just that would make them want to absolutely go for it, have that dream. On the other hand, you could also think, oh God, I want to do this. But in my case, it really, really inspired me when I was when I just started to play the oboe. So when I always thought about starting a society in Spain ever since I've been here, because there wasn't one. The Spanish Double Reed Society exists since 2011 only. And when I came back from New Zealand, that was one of the things that I decided when I came back. I just thought, right, if we're coming back to Spain, I want to do something that I always wanted to do. And so speaking to other teachers and other professional oboists and bassoonists in Seville, we decided to found the Seville Double Reed Society. So we did that. And then a year later, speaking with Masmano and the other friends who eventually became part of the the directive board of AFOES, of the Spanish Double Reed Society. A year later, then the Spanish Double Reed Society started. And really, it just all, from then on, is just so many things have happened here in the sense of the double reed world. Because we've been able to, because this association exists and these societies exist, we're able to organise masterclasses and get-togethers, which before never existed. There are so many double reed players here in Spain, but still there's a lot more to do for us to come more together. But before, it was, everybody was just sort of there was not any real contact. We weren't really, there was no sort of unified, how do you say it, a group. So this has just been so positive, really, I think, for Spain in general, and there's some great people that want to contribute to the society, and then of course with IDRS, that all happened. I ended up getting involved with the IDRS board because AFOES, the Spanish Double Reed Society, we proposed to host the conference in Granada, which happened last year, and we proposed to do that about 5 years ago. And because of that, I ended up speaking quite a lot with the IDRS board, and of course, I think it was a massive advantage having this contact of somebody who can speak English and Spanish, and for us, for AFOES, it was very useful to be able to understand, above all, the mentality, because IDRS, I would say, is originally, although it's called international, now it's much more international than it was, but even so, the mentality on the board then, maybe not so much now because different people have come on, but was quite American, and it's a different way of thinking, the same way as any country. Every culture is different, and so that was very handy. And I think, because of that, I ended up being asked to be second vice president, which is normally somebody on the board who represents a different country, and from there I ended up staying, and I've ended up being appointed as first vice president. Yeah, so it's all none of it was actually sought after at all. It just sort of, like, the same way as everything else, just sort of came along, really. And I, as I said before, I think these associations, some people, I think my colleagues in the orchestra, some of them think I think I'm a real geek. They think I'm totally freaky. It's just like, I mean, I love playing the oboe, but I think, of course, now recently with everything that's happening with the societies, I do spend a lot of time on the computer, sending lots of emails and doing things, and I think they think I'm a bit crazy, a bit mad, but but I really see. I just find it so exciting when something is organised and you see it all coming together. And for example, when we hosted the conference last year, it was just such good fun, being with so many people, and above all, seeing here in Seville, 11-year-old kids. You see their faces totally lit up. They're just like in awe of being able to, standing next to somebody else who's maybe 30 years older, being able to play really fast and a lovely tone, and that's just simple, pure inspiration, really, for them.
Mm-hmm. So with all of these added administrative and organizational responsibilities, how do you maintain your practice schedule, and how do you stay at the top of your form while you're expanding all of these different aspects of your career?
Yeah. Well, I'm very lucky. My husband cooks really well.
Yes.
And he loves it. So that is a massive plus because, having help at home, that really helps. But organizing my time, I find I just have to make sure it's basically the same. I would say since my daughter's 15, so once I had a baby, I suddenly realized, first of all, before I had her, I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to be able to practice the oboe. How am I going to make reeds? This is going to be impossible. But you just find a way. She would just be lying on the floor and I would play for 10 minutes or whatever. You just find a way. And now the same thing, having 3 or 4 things going on at the same time. I just try and get my priorities right. And then with practice, I don't try and practice for a whole hour and a half now. I will set a goal of do 45 minutes, make sure I do some technique and something musical, and have a break, do something else, then go back, do another 45 minutes. So it's short, concentrated time, but I find for me that works much better because I don't get tired brain-wise. And then, of course, the same with reeds. I make sure that I've always got 3 or 4 blanks ready, 3 or 4 that are half scraped, and 3 or 4 that are on their way to being played. Just always having everything sort of going on all at the same time.
And thank you so much for talking about motherhood and time management. I was recently at the Meg Quigley Vivaldi bassoon competition and symposium, and the founder and artistic director, Nick Custer, was talking about how when she was coming up, there were so few images of professional musicians who were also mothers, and the implied need to choose, or the implied mutual exclusiveness of those things. And so I think it's so important, that we as women professionals talk about the multifaceted aspects of our life. I think that's a really important example to set.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, everybody would say when you have a child, it changes your life in so many ways. There's so many positive aspects. And I would say for playing as well, for me, I was so worried before that I wouldn't have enough time to do all my things. But actually, in the end, you find more time than you thought you had before, because you are forced to prioritize and you don't have the whole day anymore. So you have to make sure you do things, you use it more concisely, the time. And also what I found is my perspective over life changed. I became a lot more relaxed because we would get up in the morning when she was smaller, get everything ready, and by the time I got to work, I was just so relieved I got to work. It was just like, I'm on holiday now, and so to play a big solo Don Juan or whatever, it was just like, this is just amazing. I'm loving this, and I actually think you're not so stressed about it because actually. Changing a baby's nappy beforehand was much more stressful than getting the oboe out. I think, there's different ways of looking at it, definitely.
As you look over the course of your career, do you have some favorite memories of past performances that you can share with us?
The thing is, every week is different, and we do symphonic concerts, opera, we do zarzuela, we do ballet, and that's great because it's always so different. And I would say most weeks are so memorable in the sense that they are special and a different conductor often, different repertoire, and it'd be really hard to pick one. But I would say probably if I had to talk about an experience that's left an impact on me, it would be when I was younger. When I played Brahms symphony, I would have been about 15, and I remember this feeling of absolutely loving the whole experience, and just knowing that was exactly what I wanted to do in the future. And then I would say, recently, 2 years ago, I played the Vaughan Williams Concerto with my orchestra in Seville, and that was very special for me because it was with my colleagues accompanying. That was lovely to do something like that. I can tell you about something, a bit of a strange experience.
Please do.
Yeah. This was just last year. We all have funny experiences in performances sometimes. But this was just incredible. In the oboe section, we're 4 oboists. We are 2 British women, so me and another girl called Sarah. She plays the cor anglais, and the second oboe is from Valencia, and the other first oboe is from Valencia. So we all, about 20 years ago, got the same reed case. And it's a really beautiful reed case with like a humidifier in the middle, and they're all black, and none of them have fallen apart yet. So we were doing Beethoven 3, and Beethoven 3 was in the second half, and in the break, we were just about 10 minutes warming up to go on. I went to get my reeds, and I couldn't find my reed case. And we suddenly realised that Sarah had, I thought she must have taken my reed case because I couldn't think of anything else. First of all, I thought maybe it had fallen down a hole in the theatre. So we were like desperately, because behind the stage there are, unfortunately, there's a couple of holes where things, I've lost a few things down there, like plaques and things. They're just lost forever. They're just like down the bottom of the pit somewhere, even below. It's just like this big hole. And I just thought, oh no, has it gone down there? Or and then I thought, oh, maybe Sarah took my reed case by mistake, and but hers wasn't there. So she'd already gone, but luckily it looked like she was still in the theatre. But meanwhile, I basically had to take a reed off the second oboe, and just give me one. He just gave me one. Just like quickly tried it out. Okay, that gives a good A. Oh, it's sort of like in tune. I was just thinking, oh my God, this is incredible. But I just thought, I'll just have to do it. Okay, they were. The people behind said, well, should we wait? And I said, well, what are we going to do? Let's just go and do it. So we went on the stage. I started to give the A, and I was just thinking already, this is going to be a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, as I'd given the A, meanwhile, Sarah had been called, and she luckily was still in the theatre, ran back and realised what had happened, gave the reed case to somebody who came onto the stage and gave me the reed case before the conductor came on. So the conductor came on, and I managed to get this reed out quickly and swap it over. Anyway, so we played Beethoven 3 I was playing on the reeds from my reed case. And afterwards, the whole wind section, they knew what had happened. They said to me, bravo, that was fantastic. Oh, God, that's really good. They thought that I played on the second oboe's reed. And I said, and it was so fun that the whole thing was just like surreal, really. Because it was a matter of seconds that this guy came in dressed in black, sort of like popped his head underneath the music stand and gave me this.
Wow.
Yeah. Got the read out quickly, and then we just started, and
He was the real MVP.
Yeah. That was definitely a memorable experience. Yeah.
Oh, I felt very stressed listening to the story.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it had a happy ending. It was
But when things like that happen, I find it. I really quite surprised how I react, because I just go into this sort of like peaceful peaceful state. I wasn't really like panicking or anything. I thought afterwards, God, I would have done it. And that's the thing. You think we don't think that we're capable of doing something like that, or just going on stage playing on a totally different reed, Beethoven 3 or whatever. But when you're put in that situation, you have to. So you just don't think. You have to just react.
I just love the symbolism of it being a funeral march. That would.
It nearly was.
So you hear students all over the world. You teach, you give master classes. What are some of your favorite traits that you hear in young musicians, and what are the things that you get most excited about when you hear in these teaching situations?
I think what really catches my ear now is when somebody is really trying to make music, not just trying to play the right notes and to make a nice sound. Because there are a lot of people now, especially in Europe, let's say Spain. I would say, for example, yesterday I was giving lessons, and it's this vision of making a lovely, round, dark sound, which is great. But then what happens is often people get distracted by just trying to create a good sound and not actually making music with it. So a lot of students end up having maybe slightly too thick reeds just because they want this sound. And then what happens is they can't produce different colors, and then it's not so flexible. It's not so easy to be able to experiment with different contrasts in the sound. And when a student does that and is not so worried about making this sort of standard dark round sound that they think that they should be making, and they're just thinking about the music and just the rhythm is there and they're feeling it, that's what I like to hear. And I really like people who've got spirit as well, as a person, as they are as people. Normally that will come out as a musician as well. I like meeting students that are passionate about what they're doing. They, sometimes they might have technical problems, normally if they've got that passion and that dream to do things with the oboe or with music, then I feel that they're going to get somewhere.
That's beautiful.
What advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
I would say I got where I got because I worked a lot. I studied a lot. I wouldn't say I'm a workaholic, but I think you do need to be quite ambitious, and you do need to set your goals and know exactly what you really want to do and work for it. If not, there's somebody else will get there before you, in the sense of winning a job or something. But then I would say the type of job I have, I'm very lucky to have I actually share this solo oboe job, so there's two of us. I'm very lucky to have that because I can choose a bit when I play in the orchestra, and so then I have time to do other things. And that means that I can play chamber music, I can do solo work and teach. Of course, that comes with the job, really. And then I think you do need to be quite open-minded, really, and open to any opportunity that comes, because certainly in Britain and the rest of Europe, it's really important, the contacts you make, and you just don't know what it's going to lead on to, freelance work and also I would say above all, it's really important how you are as a person, because when, I don't know how it is in America, but for example, in my job in Spain and also in Britain, it's definitely like that. There's always a time where you're being tried out, at least a year or 2 or 3 years. In Spain, it was in my case, it was at least 2 years. And if you obviously you have to play well, you have to be a good player, a good musician. But if you personally don't get on with your colleagues, it's not going to work. You have to. The chemistry needs to be right. So, I mean, obviously there's a place for everyone anywhere. But it helps if you can be a stable, easygoing, somebody that's easy to get on with, I think, especially in an orchestra, because there can be far too many egos, and the last thing that an orchestra wants is another ego that's going to get in the way, I would say, when we try out new people, or if somebody comes to play, that for me, apart from how they play, is really important, because you have to be able to get on with the person and know that you can say to them, oh, can we just go through that bit again, or do you think we should play a bit flatter here, or just odd comments. If somebody takes that too personally, then it's just not going to work. So I try to say that to my students as well, and that was a piece of advice I was given quite early on in London. Because in London, freelance work, there's a lot of freelance work, and it's really a lot of it's to do with that, who obviously how you play as well, but you can't go somewhere and be a bit cocky, because it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What exciting things do you have coming up that you'd like to tell us about?
At the moment, there's a lot of orchestral work. We've got the Alpine Symphony starting tomorrow. We've got Don Juan in a couple of weeks' time. The Traviata, Verdi's Traviata opera. There's quite a few big works coming up. We're doing a German tour as well. And for me, outside the orchestra, I'm still working with the oboe quartet I have, with strings and oboe. We're sort of working on new programs now. And I have a couple of premieres happening this year. I'm working with a composer called Luke Stiles, an Australian composer. He's composing a oboe concerto for, seem to remember it's 13 music. It's a small group of musicians, and it's a project shared between a modern music group called Arco in Australia and a modern music group in Seville called Taller Sonoro. So I've been in contact with Luke. I saw him before Christmas, and we're working on that. That's really exciting, working with a composer on a new work like that. I'm absolutely loving it, because he's sending me every now and again pieces of the music, and I'm playing it and sending comments, and I'm finding that really interesting. And another piece that I will premiere in Spain, well, I'm not sure it'll be in Spain or somewhere else, called Silentum Amoris by Jesus Torres. He's a Spanish composer, and I played his oboe quartet. We played his oboe quartet a couple of years ago. Absolutely fantastic piece. There is no recording of it yet, but maybe I would like to record it. We'll see if that happens. He's also written a trio for oboe, cello, and piano. Yes, there's a couple of projects with new music, really. And to be honest, last year was with the IDRS conference. It took so much time out of us that I didn't have much time to think about anything else afterwards. And since that's finished, it's a bit like, oh, okay, got to start again now. Because it literally took, I would say, nearly 2 years, or at least a year of my spare time out. Yeah. So normally, when I have free time, I would be thinking on promoting my groups or anything else that I could do for myself. But last year that was more on based on hosting a IDRS conference. But that's fine. It was also great to do.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on Double Reed Dish. What a great chat.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to speak to you both. And I have to congratulate you so much for this podcast. I listen to you when I make reads, when I take the dog out. It's great. It's so inspiring, because I just love listening to other, people's different points of view. It's great. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed that episode, you have 24 hours to drive to Oxford, Ohio to see us live at their Bassoon Day, or you can come see us at Florida's Double Reed Day in March. Go to our website for more information about that. Otherwise, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you can listen to us on all the platforms where you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Play.
Our next fabulous guest is Dr. Ann Shoemaker, Associate Professor of Bassoon at Baylor University. So please tune in for that one. We hope you loved that interview. And Jackie, time to end this nerd parade.
Go make reads and
come to our live show.